All right, so hopefully you reviewed the syllabus and welcome to Module 1 of Social Work 793. Unfortunately, we can't go through typical introductions like we would in a standard class, but I would encourage you to answer the discussion question on D2L just to introduce yourself and introduce yourself to your classmates. I'd really like to get to know each one of you individually. I know it can feel a little bit impersonal doing online courses, but I try to make this as similar to an in-class experience as possible. And one of the best ways to do that is to interact in the discussion forum. So I would encourage you to introduce yourself on there and maybe share a little bit more about your experiences with single system designs and practice evaluation. Now you can watch this video and kind of dig right into what exactly is this class for, what are single system designs, why are you taking this course, what are you going to get out of it. So in this module, I'll cover the basics of single system design, obviously, what they are and how we use them, the scientific practitioner and NASW Code of Ethics, which applies to everything you're going to be learning in the program, but more specifically in this module geared towards single system designs, the advantages of using single system design in practice, and why it's important for you to grasp the concept of single system design, practice evaluation, and how you can use it to guide your practice, because it is a really valuable tool to make sure that your clients are reaching their desired outcomes, because we need to do our best to provide the most scientifically valid approaches to practice in the field of social work. We also owe it to our clients to provide the best possible services that we can. And then lastly, the short introduction form are the questions that I'm going to post to the discussion forum that I'm hoping that you're going to answer. So let's delve right into it. All right, so at a real basic level, what exactly are single system designs? Single system designs are essentially procedures used to observe a change in a client's problem with the same type of measurement repeated over time. So as opposed to experimental designs where you might have read research about somebody having one intervention implemented and seeing how somebody's responding to maybe a one-time intervention or a one-time model. Single system design is essentially taking one person and repeating it measurement of the same variable with the same type of measurement repeatedly and monitoring what changes occur from your intervention. So single system designs involve continually observing one client before, during, and sometimes after an intervention. So in this course, what I'm going to be talking about before, it's going to be referring to their baseline. So what's their baseline problem before you actually step in and try to implement some type of intervention? So baseline is essentially what would be expected to continue over time if you hadn't stepped in at all. So before we step in, we might want to measure somebody's drinking habits. So a baseline would be how many ounces of alcohol are they consuming per day on average before you implemented some type of intervention, whether it be a group intervention or individual intervention. Obviously, we also want to monitor it during the intervention to see what type of influence the intervention has had upon the target behavior. And sometimes we might even want to do a follow-up to see if there's any kind of lasting impact of our intervention. So single system designs also include identifying clients' goals. Where do they want to go? How can we help them? Where do they see themselves at the end of the intervention, and how can we make steps to help them get there? The objectives that they'd like to accomplish. And also, we tend to look at clients from a deficit-based model at times. If you've taken a DSM class, you might have heard it's kind of like a medical model or a deficit model of what's wrong with this person. Through single system designs, we're trying to look at their strengths that we can draw upon too. So what's their motivation? What kind of social supports do they have in their life? What can we use to help them to make the progress that they would like to make and get the outcomes that we're hoping for? So with single system designs, essentially we're monitoring the target behavior that we're looking at before, during, and sometimes after the intervention has been in place. So if you were to think about maybe somebody who is in an Alcoholics Anonymous program. So prior to the Alcoholics Anonymous program, we would take a baseline to see how much are they drinking, again, maybe in ounces per day. So if we see that this person is regularly drinking 12 ounces of hard liquor per day, and that's a pretty consistent pattern for them, then we've got a solid baseline for us to compare their drinking habits during our intervention to. So let's say that we can figure out that this person is drinking 12 ounces of hard liquor per day, and that's pretty consistent throughout their life. And we stepped in with an Alcoholics Anonymous program and found maybe they're still drinking, but during the intervention period, it started to slowly decrease. Maybe there was a trend, a positive trend that was decreasing the amount of alcohol that they were consuming per day, and it was significant. By having this baseline, we have something to compare our intervention stage to determine whether or not our intervention was actually having the influence that it wanted. Sometimes we may find that that's not true, and we have to make changes to the intervention or maybe try something else. But we don't know whether or not the intervention is having any kind of influence unless we're measuring it. So that's why single system designs are so powerful and so useful for you to know in this field. So a few more characteristics of single system designs. Some of the things that we're going to be talking about throughout the course are graphing of single system designs. So with your book, it comes with the SingWin software, and that's going to be really helpful for you to make some graphs to look at trends, patterns in people's problem behaviors that you've identified, and through repeatedly remeasuring the same outcome over and over again in the baseline, then we can graph that to look at what the intervention stage looks like. So don't worry about this slide too much. I know it's not in your slides for week one because I don't want to overwhelm you, but later on in the semester we'll cover what graphs look like for single system designs. And this is just an example of acceleration line. So here we've got an example of number of cigarettes smoked per day, and we can do a comparison with a graph to look at what their baseline smoking was like compared to their intervention smoking. In this example, we could see that during the intervention, hopefully you can see that there was a decrease in the number of cigarettes smoked per day in the green squares, which are the intervention stage or phase. And you're essentially going to be doing this with your course project. So it's going to be a really cool tool for you to learn how to use this and apply it to your practice. So in that slide I just showed you, maybe it's the number of cigarettes smoked before the intervention, and you could see that maybe hopefully you'll find some type of pattern in what their regular smoking habits are like. And by having a baseline, then you're comparing the same person smoking before the intervention to after the intervention. So again, as opposed to experimental designs where you might be comparing one group of smokers that didn't get an intervention to a different group of smokers who did get an intervention, single system design is just comparing one person to themselves over time as opposed to comparing different groups of people or different persons to another. And again, changes in their problem after the intervention can be compared to their problem during baseline to determine whether or not they're making the progress that you're really hoping to get at. All right, so for those of you who've actually worked with clients already, I'm sure you've asked yourself, am I really helping this person? Am I really making the progress that I'm shooting for? Single system designs really help us to answer that question, because without measuring the outcomes that we're hoping to get at, we might just think, am I really making the progress? Did they get to where I want? But with using single system designs, we can scientifically show in an empirical way whether or not a person is improving, maintaining, or deteriorating even, which hopefully isn't the case. But through single system designs, we can show the client the data that they're improving. We could show managed care that they're improving. We can show our agency that they're improving, or maybe if they're not improving, then we've got a solid ground for saying maybe we need to try a higher level of care or a different level of care. And so again, back to this concept of baselining. Baselining is really helpful because it helps us to determine the severity of the problem before we step in. So baselining, again, is repeated measurement, but prior to the intervention. So a term you may have heard of is scientific practice. So what exactly is a scientific practitioner or scientific practice? Well, it's essentially the art and creativity of practice, but the values and philosophy of practice are combined with empirical orientation. So again, that means testing and measuring and using valid and reliable measurements to look at somebody's problem before, during, and after the intervention took place. Because without having a measurement or putting a ruler to the problem, we really don't have anything to compare it to, and we really don't know if we're having the outcomes that we're really intending to. All right, so back to the NASW, and how does scientific practice really honor the code of ethics and the NASW? If we're thinking about social justice, dignity, rights, and respects of our clients, competence, all of this is embodied through single system design. So single system design really helps us to ensure that our clients are getting the best possible care, we're providing the best possible practice, and helps us to be really honest with the way that we're looking at things. So we can provide this information to our clients to help them to understand what their patterns and behaviors are looking like, but it can also help us to ensure that we're competent and making sure that we're providing the best possible care. So some of the advantages of single system design and practice is that they can be built into just about anything. Maybe I should say this in the beginning of the class, that sometimes you'll hear single system design and single subject design be used interchangeably. The reason that is because typically people think of single subject design, but single system design can be a family system, it can be an organization system. So single system designs can be really built into just about anything, and to really look at whether or not we're having the outcomes that we're hoping to get at. And as opposed to something that's a little bit more subjective, like our clinical insight, single system designs are a lot more objective and systematic. So that means that by doing a single system design, we've got concrete, solid scientific data to look at, as opposed to just our subjective feedback. More advantages are single system designs can be used to provide feedback to clients. And a lot of times when we meet with clients, they might be demoralized, think that they're stuck. But when we can show them data that they're making improvements, or maybe we can show them that they're not making improvements, but we can provide them with motivation to get to where they'd like to be, all of this can provide them with positive feedback or valuable feedback to help them make the changes that they'd like to get to and get to their goals. And again, single system designs are easy to use and understand. Just about anybody can understand them if we can explain them. And after taking this course, I'm sure you will be able to. There's no doubt that they take some extra time, but once you've used them once, and hopefully when you've gotten practice with it in this class, you'll understand that they're pretty easy to do and build into just about anything. So really it should only just take you a little bit of extra time for something that's going to be super valuable to you as a practitioner and to your clients. All right, and so I'd just like to finish today by going through a short introduction form. So I'm going to post this to D2L, and I'm hoping that you'll return it to me in the Dropbox. This is just for me to get some quick contact information from you, the name you'd like to be referred to as, contact information if I need to get in touch with you for any reason. And I'd also like for you to talk to me about your experience with single system design, what you're hoping to learn from the course, and anything you might be concerned about that I can help you to address to begin with, because I want this to be as valuable of a resource to you as possible. I'm really hoping that you'll walk away from this course with a lot of valuable information and some skills that you can use to improve your practice. So as opposed to some other courses that you may struggle with understanding the connection between the course and your actual practice if you're hoping to be a clinician, this course is all about improving your clinical work. So I really want it to be something that we can walk away with some real tools to help improve your practice. So if there's any way that I can help you to improve it, I know that online courses can be unfriendly for some people, but I want you to know that I'm a real resource here for you. So please let me know, and I'll do my best to help you. All right, and just one last thing. There's a chapter called the prologue that I'd like for you to read for next week. I'm also going to post some discussion questions on D2L, so if you go on the course website under the discussion tab, there's going to be some questions posted about the prologue, and I'll cover it a little bit more next module. So again, you can find this PDF under the content of module 1.